The Senate chamber was alive with tension, the air thick enough to taste. Cameras flashed, microphones hummed, and every eye was fixed on the two figures at the center of the storm. Cory Booker, calm and composed, stood with quiet authority, his gaze steady. Across the room, Kash Patel's smirk betrayed a confidence that had survived countless political skirmishes. Until now. A single question from Booker cut through the chatter like a blade. The words were precise, unflinching, loaded with consequences. Patel shifted in his seat, a flicker of unease breaking through his practiced composure. For a moment, the room held its breath. Senators leaned forward. Staffers paused mid-note. Journalists clicked cameras in anticipation. It was a question that seemed simple on the surface, but carried the weight of accountability, of truth demanding to be seen. Whispers rippled through the chamber. "Did he just?" One aide murmured. "Booker doesn't hold back," another said. Social media was already alive beyond the walls. Hashtags blinking across screens. Hashtag Booker versus Patel. Hashtag Senate Showdown. The tension wasn't just political. It was cultural, a clash of ideals framed for the nation to witness. Booker's calm demeanor only amplified the impact. His voice didn't rise, didn't falter. It landed with the quiet force of certainty. Every word chipped away at Patel's defenses, exposing cracks beneath the veneer of confidence. And Patel, who had faced combative hearings before, now seemed slightly off balance, caught in a storm he hadn't anticipated. Cameras captured every twitch, every pause, every heartbeat. The journalists scribbled, knowing this was more than a typical hearing. It was a defining moment. A nation would watch, judge, and share. And the country held its collective breath as Booker leaned in, eyes locked on Patel, poised for the next move that could change the story entirely. But what happened next would leave the entire nation on edge, questioning not only the facts laid bare, but the very character of those who wield power. The first strike had been made, but the war of words and ideals was only just beginning. Every observer felt it. This was not just a hearing. This was history in motion. The tension in the chamber deepened as the context of the hearing came into sharp focus. This was no ordinary Senate session. What unfolded here could shape the nation's trust in oversight, in accountability, and in the very principles of democracy. Every question, every response carried weight far beyond the walls of the Capitol, and every pause between words was a heartbeat for millions watching across living rooms, phones, and news feeds. Cory Booker wasn't here merely to debate. He was here to defend transparency, to hold power to its promises, and to ensure the mechanisms of justice could not be bent or ignored. His presence demanded attention. The stakes were national. Kash Patel, seated across the room, represented the opposite, an embodiment of obfuscation, of arrogance, of the kind of unaccountable influence that left ordinary Americans questioning whether truth still mattered in politics. The history between the two figures made every exchange sharper, more consequential. Patel had weathered scrutiny before, but Booker's reputation for a calm intelligence and moral authority meant this clash was different. The nation wasn't just watching for drama. They were waiting for justice, for clarity, for a hero willing to confront a villain armed with influence and deflection. Whispers of the underlying issues, classified documents, alleged mismanagement, procedural violations drifted through the room. Senators exchanged glances, aides bit nails, and journalists typed furiously, framing each statement as a potential headline. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Social media reflected the intensity. Trending hashtags, viral short clips, pundits dissecting body language and phrasing. The stakes were no longer abstract. They were immediate, global, and deeply personal to anyone invested in truth and integrity. Booker's opening lines, precise and unwavering, didn't just confront Patel. They challenged the entire system to live up to its ideals. Every word reinforced that accountability was not negotiable. For the audience, there was an unmistakable sense of FOMO. Missing this moment would mean missing history, the rare spectacle of dignity clashing with arrogance under the nation's watchful eyes. Patel's responses, carefully measured at first, began to show strain. Small hesitations, shifts in posture, subtle flickers of frustration. They told a story that words alone could not. It was a tension between confidence and exposure, between public image and private unraveling. Viewers could feel in their own chests. The quiet electricity of a confrontation that mattered beyond party lines, beyond headlines, beyond politics itself. As the section drew to a close, the audience was left teetering on the edge of suspense. What seemed like a measured exchange was setting the stage for something far more explosive. Every citizen watching could sense it. The moment was pivotal, the stakes enormous, and what happened next would change not just reputations, but the conversation about power. Kash Patel's rise in influence was marked by ambition, cunning, and a relentless drive to climb political ranks. From the outside, he appeared confident, composed, untouchable, but beneath the surface, there was a pattern of strategic maneuvering that often prioritized loyalty and self-preservation over principle. To his critics, he represented a new type of political archetype, one who could navigate power with skill yet skirt accountability with ease. From early in his career, Patel had cultivated connections that would carry him through turbulent political waters. Advisors, colleagues, and media strategists often noted his charisma and tactical intelligence, yet many whispered about the calculated edge behind his charm. It wasn't malice that defined him. It was ambition paired with willingness to deflect, distract, and dominate the narrative whenever scrutiny threatened to pierce his armor. Controversies followed Patel throughout his tenure. Allegations of document mishandling, selective disclosure, and politically motivated defenses became part of his professional narrative. Each time, he emerged unscathed publicly, his poise and media presence reinforcing the image of competence. But insiders knew the cracks were there, subtle yet undeniable. Moment of hesitation, brief flashes of irritation, and the careful measures taken to avoid exposure. Booker, observing Patel's history, recognized the patterns instantly. This was a man skilled in rhetoric, practice in deflection, and experience at maintaining appearances, but one whose moral compass had often been compromised for the sake of career advancement. In framing Patel as the antagonist, the story became clear. Here was a hero facing a figure who wielded power not for the public good, but for personal gain and influence. The contrast between them was cinematic, almost palpable. Where Patel exuded calculated arrogance, Booker radiated calm authority. Where Patel relied on manipulation bravado, Booker depended on facts, integrity, and moral clarity. The narrative of hero versus villain wasn't abstract. It was unfolding before the nation, a study in how power can be used or misused when the stakes are highest. And yet, Patel believed he was untouchable, that his past successes insulated him from challenge. But the room and the country was about to witness a reckoning he hadn't anticipated. The first move had been made, and the moment that followed would test every skill he had relied on, pushing him toward a confrontation that could redefine his legacy. Cory Booker's journey to the Senate was forged in the crucible of struggle, service, and unwavering commitment to justice. Growing up in Newark, New Jersey, he witnessed the challenges faced by communities often overlooked by those in power: crime, inequality, and a system that too frequently failed its citizens. These early experiences shaped his understanding of responsibility, empathy, and the power of action over rhetoric. Booker's path was never straightforward. Every step of his political ascent demanded resilience and courage. From city council to mayor and ultimately to the Senate, he faced skepticism, resistance, and political maneuvering designed to undermine his progress. But each obstacle reinforced his dedication to integrity and truth. Where others might have been under pressure, Booker leaned in, using adversity to sharpen his focus and deepen his commitment to public service. His story resonated because it was relatable yet aspirational. Booker embodied the ideal that leadership is not about personal gain, but about lifting communities and holding power accountable. His experiences, navigating bureaucracy, confronting corruption, and advocating for marginalized voices, provided a foundation of credibility that few could challenge. He was not simply a politician. He was a moral force, a figure whose calm authority and measured approach contrasted sharply with the arrogance he would confront in the hearing room. Beyond policy, Booker's personal character reflected empathy, discipline, and strategic foresight. He understood the stakes of every political maneuver, yet he never allowed cynicism to eclipse his core principles. His approach combined intellect with emotional resonance, a rare balance of reason, argument, and human connection that inspired loyalty, admiration, and trust. As he prepared to face Kash Patel, this backstory was critical. It was not just about experience or titles. It was about the foundation of integrity and purpose that gave him the confidence to challenge arrogance without losing composure. The nation was about to witness the culmination of years of preparation, sacrifice, and moral fortitude. Every question he posed, every word he spoke, was underpinned by a lifetime of service, struggle, and commitment to truth. In the tense silence before the next exchange, viewers could sense it. This was a moment born of preparation and principle. Booker was ready not only to confront Patel, but to define a new standard of accountability, a benchmark for how courage and dignity could prevail when power was misused. The stage was set, and the nation held its breath, waiting for the hero to make his move. The room crackled with tension as the exchange between Cory Booker and Kash Patel intensified. What had begun as a measured confrontation quickly escalated into a charged battle of words, each carefully chosen, each carrying the weight of accountability. Senators leaned forward, aides exchanged anxious glances, and the gallery seemed to collectively inhale, anticipating the next move in this high-stakes showdown. Booker's voice, steady and unwavering, sliced through Patel's practiced composure. His questions were precise, each one exposing inconsistencies, gaps, and evasions. Patel, at first confident, began to show subtle signs of strain, micro-expressions of frustration, shifts in posture, a quickening of breath. Every carefully rehearsed defense faltered under Booker's calm but relentless scrutiny. The contrast was stark. One man grounded in principle, the other relying on deflection and bravado. The debate's intensity grew as Booker pressed on, his calm authority amplifying Patel's discomfort. "You've claimed transparency," Booker said, "yet critical documents remain unaccounted for. How do you reconcile that with your public statements?" The question landed like a hammer, and Patel's brief pause was a crack in the armor of confidence he had long maintained. Journalists scribbled notes frantically, sensing the headlines forming in real time. Social media erupted. Clips of Patel's hesitation circulated instantly, memes began to surface, and hashtags trended within minutes. Patel attempted to regain control, his tone sharper now, edged with defensiveness. He interjected, citing technicalities and procedural nuances, hoping to distract from the pressure Booker applied. But the hero remained composed, refusing to be baited. Each rebuttal he offered was met with calm, factual counterpoints, drawing the crowd's attention not just to the content of his words, but to the integrity behind them. Observers could feel the momentum shift. The narrative was tilting. Audiences at home felt the tension, as if they were present in the chamber. The emotional stakes were high. This was more than a political exchange. It was a clash between arrogance and accountability, between self-interest and civic duty. Each pause, each pointed question, each flicker of doubt on Patel's face became a microdrama, compelling viewers to remain glued to the screen, to witness every beat of the unfolding spectacle. By the time the section drew to a close, the hearing had transformed into a chessboard of strategy, morality, and influence. The crowd held its collective breath as Booker prepared for the defining moment, the mic drop counterattack that would expose Patel's contradictions fully and solidify the hero's position. The suspense was palpable and the nation felt it. The next move could change everything. Cory Booker leaned forward, his gaze unwavering, and the room seemed to still around him. Every eye, every camera lens, every heartbeat of the chamber centered on the moment he was about to deliver. Patel, once poised and smug, now fidgeted under the weight of scrutiny, the confidence that had carried him through so many political storms beginning to fracture. Booker's words landed with surgical precision, exposing contradictions Patel had carefully buried behind rhetoric and procedure. "You repeatedly claimed full compliance and transparency," Booker said, his tone calm but commanding. "Yet the timeline of document handling tells a different story. How can the public trust assurances that aren't backed by evidence?" The silence that followed was deafening. Patel opened his mouth to respond, but no words could restore the facade of control slipping through his fingers. The senator's arguments were layered, each point building on the last, weaving facts, precedents, and moral reasoning into an unstoppable narrative. He didn't shout, he didn't grandstand. Instead, he relied on authority grounded in knowledge and principle, leaving Patel visibly rattled. Every pause, every deliberate emphasis reinforced the contrast. One man armed with truth, the other with fragile performance. Cameras captured the micro moments, The narrowing of Patel's eyes, the tightening of his jaw, the subtle shifts in posture. Journalists and aides sense a turning tide, fingers hovering over keyboards to capture history as it happened. Social media mirrored the intensity. Short clips of Booker's pointed questions went viral within minutes. Hashtags trending, analysts dissecting tone and timing, while ordinary viewers shared their disbelief and admiration in real time. By the final sequence of his counterattack, Booker had delivered not just a rebuttal, but a full exposure of the inconsistencies that had defined Patel's conduct. The chamber seemed to exhale collectively as the weight of truth settled over proceedings. Patel's usual armor of confidence lay in fragments. Every argument he made now sounded defensive, reactive, and hollow compared to Booker's composed clarity. The emotional crescendo left observers breathless. The hero had not just confronted the villain. He had demonstrated that integrity, calm, and preparation could outmatch arrogance and opportunism. As Booker paused, letting the impact resonate, the nation understood the stakes, the courage, and the stakes of accountability. The aftermath was inevitable, and the ripple effects were about to sweep far beyond the Senate chamber. The hearing ended, but the impact rippled far beyond the Senate chamber. Social media erupted almost immediately. Clips of Booker's piercing questions and Patel's faltering responses circulated endlessly. Hashtags like hashtag Booker versus Patel, hashtag accountability matters, and hashtag Senate Showdown dominated feeds. Memes and reaction videos captured every nuance. The narrowing of Patel's eyes, Booker's calm authority, and the tension that had gripped the nation. Political commentators, journalists, and even celebrities weighed in. Analysts debated the implications, dissecting each moment, each pause, each word. Late-night shows and news panels replayed the exchange, framing it as a defining moment of moral courage versus unchecked power. The conversation spilled into homes, workplaces, and classrooms. Citizens, young and old, discussed what had just happened, comparing values, ethics, and civic responsibility. Within the political sphere, ripple effects were immediate. Colleagues and allies of both men issued statements, some praising Booker's composure and commitment to truth, others attempting to defend Patel's position. The hearing became a benchmark for evaluating integrity in office, a case study in how preparation, principle, and poise could turn the tide against arrogance and manipulation. For ordinary Americans, the moment transcended politics. It became a symbol that courage and truth could challenge the status quo, that one person grounded in principle could hold powerful figures accountable. Every clip shared, every discussion sparked, reinforced this lesson, reminding viewers that engagement, observation, and moral clarity matter. And yet, as the nation absorbed the magnitude of what had just unfolded, the tension lingered. Questions remained. Would Patel recover? How would this affect broader policy debates? The story was far from over. Every viewer sensed it. The aftershocks had begun, and the next chapter would bring even higher stakes, shaping both reputations and the conversation about power in America. As the dust settled in the Senate chamber, the narrative became clear. This was more than a debate. It was a lesson in integrity, courage, and accountability. Cory Booker had demonstrated that composure, preparation, and moral clarity could confront arrogance and manipulation head-on. The hearing was no longer just about facts or procedure. It was about the principles that underpin a functioning democracy. Booker's calm authority and unwavering dedication to truth reminded the nation that leadership is not measured by charisma or rhetoric alone, but by the courage to stand for what is right, even when the stakes are high. Patel's faltering composure and exposed contradictions served as a cautionary tale. Power without principle is fragile, and arrogance cannot withstand the steady weight of accountability. Across the country, viewers reflected on the broader implications. This confrontation became symbolic of what civic engagement can achieve. Ordinary citizens, seeing someone in power uphold transparency and ethics, felt a renewed sense of hope and responsibility. Conversations in living rooms, classrooms, and online forums shifted from partisan argument to moral reflection. People recognized the importance of truth, courage, and persistence in shaping a just society. The story closed not with victory over an opponent, but with the affirmation of universal values. Dignity triumphs over arrogance. Service outweighs self-interest, and accountability strengthens, rather than weakens, institutions. The lesson was inspiring and actionable. reminding viewers that upholding these values in their own communities mattered just as much as holding officials accountable in Washington. In this moment, the hero's impact extended beyond the hearing room. The nation had witnessed a masterclass in integrity, a demonstration that principled courage could inspire collective reflection and action. For anyone watching, it was a clarion call. Stand firm, speak truth, and never underestimate the power of moral conviction. The Senate hearing may have ended, but its impact reverberated across the nation. Cory Booker's unwavering courage and meticulous preparation had not only exposed contradictions, but also set a standard for integrity and accountability. Viewers were left with more than a story. They were left with a lesson. Leadership grounded in principle can confront even the most entrenched arrogance. As the screen fades from the intensity of the debate to the broader implications, it becomes clear that this moment belongs to everyone invested in truth and justice. Ordinary citizens, activists, and policymakers alike witnessed the power of composure, evidence, and moral conviction. This was a demonstration that engagement and vigilance are not optional. They are essential for safeguarding democracy and upholding the values that bind a nation. If this story resonated, if the tension, courage, and triumph move you, there is a way to be part of the ongoing conversation. Subscribe, share, and engage. Be the voice that amplifies accountability and integrity. Stand up in your own communities. Speak truth to power, and hold fast to the principles that define dignity and justice. The debate may have ended in the chamber, but the ripple effects continue. Every share, every discussion, every act of conscience keeps the story alive. Join the movement, and let's ensure that truth, courage, and accountability remain at the heart of our nation.